you. So, the motion that the Waitemata local board received the notice of motion. Request Waka Kotahi implement a regular monthly open day of 2 lanes on the Auckland Harbour Bridge, open to pedestrians, cyclists and other micro-mobility users, active modes. To request a copy of these resolutions be forwarded to all local boards and all councillors for their information.
And I was thinking the same words, Julie's not sitting up.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity to put this notice of motion. Since 1959, the Auckland Harbour Bridge has connected Aucklanders. It's opened up vast tracts of land on the North Shore, and it's only for access for those in a motor vehicle. Now, for decades, there have been calls to provide access to those on foot, bikes, leisure, for commuting, to enjoy the harbour from 45 metres above sea level. I'd like to take this time to acknowledge the tireless work from Barb Cuthbert and the many folks at Bike Auckland who do fantastic work in that respect. I'd also like to acknowledge Bevan Woodward and the Sky Park Trust. They have been pushing for a permanent link across for a very long time. I think that work has been really important to get us to this stage. Now, I'd also just like to point out that this notice of motion is not regarding the permanent conversion of a lane. That's not what it is. While I do support that idea, this is not it. This notice of motion is also not regarding the proposed walking and cycling bridge that the Ministry of Transport has proposed. And again, while I support that, although with the inclusion of bus lanes, this is specifically for a monthly Sunday open day. Now, I believe we should throw open roads to the people. We know that it can be done. It is done every year for the marathon. It has been done for various protests from different parties, and reducing the general traffic capacity on the bridge from 4 lanes all the way to 3 lanes is only a 25% reduction on a day that should be carrying far less traffic than Monday to Friday peak days. This will be incredibly positive for many different people. It will be positive for people of all ages and abilities, although granted it is relatively steep for a bridge. So that may restrict exactly who can access it. We can't do much about that at this stage. I would hope that any permanent link or any future facilities do have people in wheelchairs and various abilities in mind with cheaper grade. This will be available for residents of Waitemata and the whole of Auckland. That's why I've asked for this to be sent to all local boards and all councillors, because this is an asset for all Aucklanders and indeed all New Zealanders. I can just imagine the flow of people, families coming into Britomart on the train with their bikes. They get off, they cycle along the waterfront, this beautiful new Quay Street that we've built through Wynyard Quarter and around the safe boardwalk that we've built through West Haven to right across the bridge. What an incredible asset that would be for this city. I can imagine people coming from all around New Zealand just to ride this, and I bet there'll be bike rental shops popping up around there to service this demand. It will connect families split by geography. My family lives in Takapuna, my wife and family in Devonport and we're in Grey Lynn, and it's infuriating that there's no active mode connection without going 30 kilometres around the harbour. This will be a boon for tourism and for businesses. That's something that is not focused enough on in the media. The businesses of Herne Bay, of Ponsonby, Wynyard Quarter, the city centre, as well as on the other side, Northcote Point, Northcote, Takapuna, they will all benefit from this, but most of all, our businesses will benefit from this, because when people go for a ride with their family, for leisure on a Sunday, they'll want a coffee, they'll want some lunch. It will be excellent for our area. And this, call it a trial, call it an experiment, it will prove the business case that there is demand for active modes in Auckland. I know that the market for Monday to Friday riders is very different. People commuting to work, to school, wherever else is very different to this proposal. But this is a Sunday morning. This is focused on people who want leisure, who want to go see their family on the other side of the bridge. Now, the number of people who cycle to a random council meeting is not a true indicator of that demand. The true number is far harder to establish, and it's how many people would cycle should there be safe infrastructure in place. And we can't roll out an entire network of safe cycle ways overnight. We have to do it in parts, and that's why there is criticism that they maybe disconnected at this stage. But you need to eat the elephant in pieces. We need to build important parts to start connecting up, and the Harbour Bridge is one of the most important there is. Now, as Barb from Bike Auckland has discussed, e-bike sales have been going through the roof. Ferries are struggling to keep up. Ricardo has also mentioned maybe a human rights issue. I certainly hope he doesn't cycle across the bridge in an unauthorised time. But I do admire his courage and well done to him. Now, some of the infrastructure to enable this is already in place. We've got signage on Ponsonby Road, which directs the alternative route via Fanshawe Street. There are also movable lane dividers. There would be a need to be additional infrastructure to separate off the two lanes. And the reason we've changed the two lanes is because, well, two real reasons. One is the safety, which Waka Kotahi has indicated they're not comfortable with only having a single lane, and I understand that. It would be a lot harder to put in a movable barrier. And the second thing is to enable walkers a safe lane. If we can have one lane for cyclists going either way and another lane for walkers, everyone will be safer. It will be far, far better for all users. The lack of consultation that may be brought up around this. Well, I believe that as a local board, we've consulted on local board, a local board plan in a way that has highlighted 5 key outcomes of the 6 outcomes. Connected communities that are inclusive, accessible, and equitable. This provides that. High quality urban development that has accessible, versatile, and sustainable public and private spaces. This links all of those spaces. The Waitemata is future focused, green, and resilient to climate change. Well, let's open up active modes. Mode shift is one of the most effective ways that we can lessen our climate change impact. Sustainable transport network that is safe and accessible. Absolutely. Sustainable. This is getting people out on bikes, out walking, healthier for them, healthier for the planet. And that Waitemata businesses are sustainable, innovative, and prosperous. There is research that shows that people on a bike spend more than people in a car. The businesses of Wynyard Quarter, of Ponsonby, of Herne Bay will find this to be a massive boom. I have absolutely no doubt about it. So please, I ask you, do support this notice of support. It's an advocacy position that we are presenting to Waka Kotahi for one of their assets. If they feel they need to do consultation on it, that's up to them. But we are representing our community with the outcomes that we have consulted on. And I believe this is a great opportunity for the people of Auckland, the people of Waitemata. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that what Graham said was very comprehensive, and all the things that I wanted to say, I'm pretty sure he's ticked off. Maybe the only thing left to emphasise is how much I believe that both physical and mental well-being are very intertwined, and how, and I guess that part of the people spending more on a Sunday when they're out is also the extra joy that they'll feel from having this experience with the family.
Well, it's less speaking and more questions, if you don't mind. Because I haven't had questions of Member Gunthorpe and Member Sandlands, because this has landed on my lap through the minutes. There's been zero conversation in the workshop. These would be the workshops that we insist on being private so that we can have these conversations and not incite our constituents. I'd love people in the public gallery to put their hand up if they support this. I presume, so we have 3, 4?
Just don't.
Sorry. So we have, well, I think if I was putting a notice of motion like this, that gallery would be packed with people prepared to put their hand up and say, I support this. Now you can smile, but actually I take our responsibility to our community very seriously. So when you say that the businesses will benefit from this because everyone's going to go out and buy coffee, can you elaborate? Has there been any research done on the impact of the gridlock that this will cause, and B, how many more coffees? Where's the evidence?
Sorry, this.
I'd have to use my right of
This is
reply.
the chairman.
Oh, okay, right, well, let me go on. You talk about having a mandate from our community community, and I'm sorry, but I do not believe that a turnout of 35% in Waitemata, or give or take 5%, whatever it is a mandate for us to be pushing this sort of thing through without going out and talking to our community and at least filling the public gallery, of which there's only 50 seats. I also want to say that I do not think that the local board plans give us much of a mandate. I was begging people to speak to Alex and I when we went to the farmers market in Parnell, and then again when I was with Member Christie in the library at Parnell. My opinion is that let's say there's 90,000 people that live in Waitemata. Less than 1,000 have given us feedback on our local board plan. If you can go out and bring back to me 2,000 signatures from people, I'll give it to you, all across Auckland, then I'm very happy to enter into a debate on this. But we cannot force this through on our constituents, and I think it would just be arrogant to do so. I'm curious to know also how many businesses you've spoken to. Councillor Coombe mentioned when the orange cones appeared on Ponsonby Road that she had spoken to businesses, or that businesses liked this. But when pressed, she hadn't actually spoken to any businesses. So let's deal in facts, please. That phrase, pathway to permanency, springs to mind. It's a phrase that's often used with these, it's never put in writing, but often used with these tactical urbanism projects and things like this. You know, you're trying to convince us to support this by saying, oh, that's for Waka Kotahi to do the research on our own constituents. It's actually ours. You talked too about the reason why we've changed to 2 lanes. I'm unsure who we are. If you could elaborate on who you're advocating this on behalf of, that would be helpful. You've also talked about this being a random council meeting. And repeatedly, I ask people, how does it feel, A, to sit in that chair, and B, to engage with the local board? They have lost confidence in us. That's why you don't have anyone here that's why you only have 3 people here with you supporting this. You mentioned Sunday. I can't see Sunday in your notice of motion. You talk about a regular monthly open day. Could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday or Friday. You also talk about betting, that this is a good idea. Well, I'm up for a bet, so you name your price and I'll take it. Health and safety. Somebody came up to me in the break and they said, well, actually, I was very pleased you asked the question about suicide. So I see the person that objected to it is no longer in the room.
Yes, I am here.
Oh, you are? All right. So I apologise if this offends you, but somebody went up to him, I understand, and said, well, actually, my friend suicided off the Harbour Bridge. This is a very serious issue that we need to consider. Councillor Coombe talked on the 18th of May about the importance of having data so that we can make decisions. I haven't seen any data. I really admire the great work that Barb Cuthbert does with Bike Auckland, but of all people that would support this, I would expect her to front up with the data to convince us all. And I guess my final question is, how many people within Waitemata have you spoken to within Waitemata and they think this is a good idea? So, you know, there's so many questions I've got on this. I find it very frustrating and arrogant with trying to push this through.
Thank you. You want to speak out?
Yes. Thank you for this motion. I just wanted to reflect on some of the LRTP feedback that came from the community recently. And there was overwhelming support for rail, buses, ferries and cycling. And there were more people who asked AT not to invest in roads than there were to invest in roads. This weekend I was stuck in Blenheim because of massive flooding. People in West Portland Borough are feeling climate change right now. This proposal has been business as usual in Colombia since the beginning of the millennium. Our electoral mandate was to promote active transport, and this is what we have been elected to do. It is in our local board plan, making it easier to cycle and to walk. E-bike imports have pretty much tripled up until 2020. There is huge demand for cycling, and other hilly cities like Edinburgh have 7.5% people commuting on bikes, and that's because the infrastructure is there and it is done. It is something that we should and can aspire to do. This sounds like a really exciting way to gather some of that extra data that we want to show the support. But as much as anything, it is a really joyful, innovative, and exciting approach that will take up less than one hand's worth of Sundays in summer that will be hugely enjoyed, I think, by people of all ages.
I don't see five.
Excuse me, please.
I don't see five in the motion.
It's over. Well, I believe that it was suggested in the speaking that it would be happening over summer, but whether it is over summer or whether it has the support to go on, I think it's an exciting idea. And when we are innovative and do good things, Auckland Council is at its best, which is why it won a prize at LGNZ for its approaching COVID. And that was because it was so innovative and supportive and responsive. And I think this is the sort of venture that allows us to be responsive and then to be responsive depending on how it goes. So, thank you for raising the motion.
I'll be supporting the motion. I think that it's beholden on us in climate crisis to find practicable trials to try and find ways to reduce carbon emissions, and also, given the obesity crisis that we're facing, to do something about public health. So I support it. Anyone else want to speak? Adriana?
Thank you very much. I just want to bring to your attention countries that have open streets or access to take over the road. Unfortunately, Colombia from the 1974, Mexico, New York, Ontario, Oregon, Arizona, and the list continues. It's really long. There's 16 countries that have, it's called the Open Streets events. It's when you take over a road and you bring in your people and your skates and your skateboards and your bikes. It's been happening for the past 10 years, 20 years in Colombia, and it works really well. And I feel that, I think, you know, let's put the bridge to one side because, yes, we're talking about the bridge, but we're talking about being able to open up the street for families and kids and young people to play and to thrive and to commute from one place to another. And this is in essence what Graham's wanting to push. I wish it was open street events all throughout Waitemata, not the bridge, but given that the bridge is something that's so contentious and there's so much fights about the bridge at the moment, I just felt like let's just not lose sense to the idea of this, because if you've been to Canada and you've enjoyed one of these open streets, you enjoy it. I've been to one in Bogota plenty of times and I enjoy it, and this is predominantly from all people, different races coming out onto the road and thriving and playing and having fun. I feel that we're just really blurring our aspect about this. Who cares if it's the road? What if it's K Road? What if it's the Pink Bridge? But it's happened on the Pink Bridge before. I'm not sure why I didn't hear about a non being built for the Pink Bridge party, because it seems like it's such a big deal.
State Highway 1.
Correct.
Sure, Graham, I also really support your notice of motion. I just want to come from a perspective of being a city centre dweller and understanding that now to buy a car park in the city centre is around $80,000. And so when we look at having events like this to change the mindsets of our constituents and our families, to really look at different ways of living, because coming back from the UK 5 years ago, where public transport is so well used, I know that you lived over there too, and looking at different methods of getting around Tamaki Makaurau is really important. in terms of climate change and all of our outcomes that have been identified. And I also want to identify, you know, as a Māori constituent, I know that in other areas of Auckland, that mindset change of moving towards bikes and public transport, it does take public events and things like this to really get people active and to think about it, because there's one thing to put it in a plan on paper, but it's another thing to actually make it something that's tangible that people can see and actually see how it could be positive for our community. So I will be supporting it. Kia ora.
Thank you all for your views, positive and against. I do appreciate these things do need to be discussed. Impact on business. I've found studies in New York City, retail sales up 192%. In London, 30%. UK generally, Department for Transport found it was up to 40%. As for how much support there were, well, 1,500 people crossed the bridge a few weeks ago. I did talk to about 24 of them. Everyone was very excited about this opportunity. Now, it may seem that it's come out of the blue. We haven't had a workshop, it's true. This is because there are machinations, I'm sure, going on in Waka Kotahi and the Ministry of Transport at the moment that I am not privy to. I only know what's going on in the media. And I want to send a message to those two bodies that we support this concept. And it is a concept. We don't know exactly what the details are. It is not our asset. It is not for us to define the exact parameters of how it will operate. But I want to send a strong message from the people in the city centre and surrounding suburbs that we support the availability of active mode transport over the Auckland Harbour Bridge. Now, I expect local boards to make things happen. It is an all too common complaint about council bodies that things take too long and nothing happens. So coming out and stating advocacy positions strongly, as I hope we do, I think sends really good messages to the bodies that make the decisions on these things. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the resolution.
Just before we do, I'd like to have the opportunity of speaking again. No. I understand.
It's standing orders. There's standing orders on this. So
May I explain why?
You can explain why.
Thank you. The reason why I'd like to explain why is that people have talked about how important this is and how we've consulted on our local board plan. This is more material than anything else in our local board plan. I would like the opportunity to say a few more things in support against, because as I said, this is arrogant and it will backfire on our brand, our Waitemata local board engagement style. We have been criticised.
You're actually making the speech, and we haven't given
May I
permission.
continue?
No, you may not continue.
All right, so
You asked
can it
for
go in the
permission.
minutes, please, that I have been denied the opportunity to speak for the second time? But may I ask the chair to actually ask for a vote on that?
Yes. Oh, no, it's going on.
Of whether I can speak for a second time. The standing orders can be changed where?
You can move that the standing order be that prevents people speaking twice be
Right,
suspended.
then
for
I
this-
move that the standing order that prevents me from advocating for the community on more than one occasion. In fact, can I ask, have
No,
City
you
Vision...
haven't moved an
have
appropriate
City
resolution.
Vision
I'll put the
caucused on
resolution.
this?
Those in favour will
Has
raise
City
their
Vision
hands.
caucused on this? Because if so, that is not
Those
fair.
against can
But
raise their
somebody
hands.
say that City
That's
Vision has
carried
not caucused
6-0.
on this.
We now come to
Ah,
item 14.
caucused.
So Waitemata feedback on the Waihoratiu Queen Street project.